So one night, they couldn't find him. They finally came back, and he said, "Where have you been? We're looking for you." He said, "I was playing with those little kids. Those little kids out there." And they were like, "What little kids?" He's like, "Yeah, out there by the woods." And they said, "No, you don't go out there. Just leave them alone." And so he came back, and then I guess again they came again back to their house. They lived out in the country. This is out by Wewoka, Oklahoma. Guess they came back around their house again another night when he kind of disappeared. They couldn't find him. They were looking for him. Went outside looking all around for him, walking around through the woods, kept looking. Finally he came back, and they were all worried and scared. And then came back, and he, "Where were you? What happened?" Asking him, "What happened? What happened to you? Where'd you go? We're worried about you." And he didn't really answer them. He didn't answer them. He just kind of pointed out that way. And so after that, he kind of changed. They said he kind of changed. He kind of wasn't as outgoing and social as much as he was before. Then he was saying that he wanted to go back out in the woods. They didn't want him to go back out there. And so they were just like, "No, you're not going out there. You stay away from those woods, and you're not going out at night." And they kind of kept making him stay in. And those Still Boogaji they would hear him running around their house. They would hear him outside. And kind of lock their doors. Everybody's staying in. Nobody's going out there and running around their house. They had a big porch that went around the whole house. So they would run along that porch. You could hear them running around their house. So they just kind of put their prayers out, put that tobacco out. They call it hiji. On my mom's side, they call it hiji. That's a tobacco medicine. So they put that hiji out and pray. And those little people kept bothering him when he was young, so they kind of just kept him in, pray for him, and he kind of became not very social. And so as he got older, he kind of stayed that way. So I was kind of just pray for him. He didn't like talking to people, so they just kind of let him stay by himself. And people ask what's wrong, what happened. They're just like, "Oh, you don't talk much." And as he got older, he ended up living till he was about probably his late 70s, out in the same community, same area. And my mom told me after she grew up, when he got older, a young man, that she had only seen him a couple times. Every time they would come around, he would stay in the car. He never got out of the car. When they would go to their house, he'd go in the back room. His room was in the back. He would go in his room and shut the door and never came out. So a lot of people didn't hardly see him, because when he went out, he just sat in the car. And so, she'd go to his door. My mom told me she'd go to his door and talk to him. "How are you?" And he'd talk to her through the door. And then he said that was kind of the rest of his life. And so she was kind of asking, "What happened? Why is he like that?" And I said, "Well, a long time ago, he was out in the woods, and Still Boogaji kept coming around. He liked to go play with them. He said he used to like to play catch with them and throw the football around and things like that, And so kind of he was like that till he passed away, all the way till he was an old man. He kind of just stayed to himself and never came out. And my uncle lived in that house still, his brother. And I would go visit my uncle out there. His name was Frank Lena, and he was full-blood Seminole. And I'd sit at his house, and he'd, sit down, visit, talk, watch basketball games, and he'd get us something to drink. We'd be talking, and we'd hear something running around outside. And I'd always think, "Is that a dog? You guys got a dog out there?" Because I always ask questions. I always like to ask questions to find out what's going on. He's like, "No, we don't have no dogs." We sit there and be talking. We hear something running around that porch. This is, probably 10 years after my uncle had passed away. And I was like, "What is that? What is that?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." I said, "What?" "I'm going to go outside. I'll be back." And I'd always be like, "Let me go with you. Let me go out there with you." He's like, "No, you stay in here." Because I wasn't really scared. Because one of the things that they taught us in our Nukazogi Seminole beliefs, our grandmas and uncles have always told us, don't be scared, you got to go outside and face that fear. If something happened or something scared you, had to go out and face it, tell it to leave, get out of here, talking the language to get out of here, leave you alone.
And is that what your uncle did?
So my Uncle Frank, he went outside. He's like, "Let me go with you." He's like, "No, he's staying here, Chaban." Chaban means a son or young man, or a young man kind of. Chaban means But no, I'll be back. He would go outside, and he'd be outside for 15, 20 minutes. When I'd go visit him out in the woods at his house, I probably
Where
heard
he
that about 3 times. So it was about 3 times that I heard that with my own ears, and he went out and did that little prayer ceremony or whatever he did to take care of it. And I also thought that was really interesting because I'd had some other experiences with little people. I felt like it's little people around here. They're doing something, you know. They're trying to mess with us, but maybe they were, you know, keeping us from something that maybe, yeah, protecting us in some way. I always kind of try to understand, like, was there a meaning there? Was there a reason that happened? And so sometimes you think like you're kind of in a hurry, or you're kind of moving too fast. You need to slow down. Like, that's what I feel like when I can't find my keys, and I know I just put them there. One time I was looking for my keys, and it was with my ex-girlfriend at the time. She was Asian, and I was like, my keys are right here. I was like, we gotta go. We were running late. I was looking around for my keys. Oh, and we were sitting on a couch, and my keys were somewhere on the table, in my pockets. I'm looking around. She's like, where are they? What'd you do with them? I was like, I don't know. I'm looking around. I was like, we gotta go. We looked for about 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, man, I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna look under the couch. So I look under the couch that we were sitting on. They weren't there. And I was like, and she had kind of been sitting on the couch. And so I was like, well, get up. And so she got up, and I lifted up the cushions on the couch, and they weren't in the crack of the cushions where stuff falls in there, money and your keys and stuff. They were in the middle of the cushion, right in the middle of the cushion under the couch. And I was like, and she saw it too, and I was like, how did they get there? You know, we just looked at each other, and I was like, that's weird. I was like, that's little people probably did that.